person singular. Blepo, I see. Gnosko. What is gnosko?
I know.
I know. Grapho is I write. Didasko.
Is I right?
I write. Grapho is I write. Didasko is I teach. You see it? First person singular. Lambano is I take. Lambano is I take. Lego. Lego is I say. Luo is I loose, or actually, it might help us better to say destroy. It means I loose or I destroy. It's the word that Jesus, remember when Jesus said, whatever you have bound on earth will be bound in heaven, whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. That's the word we're talking about there. And then ekyo. Ekyo is I have. So notice all of those verbs are written in the first person singular. And if you want to conjugate those verbs in the singular, you just change the ending. The stem will stay the same every time. You just change the ending. That's singular. Luo, lues, lue. Blepo, blepes, blepe. Gnosko, gnoskes, gnoske. It always, the stem stays the same. The stem stays the same. All right, that's singular. Now, let's do the plural. I would encourage you to write down these endings right here. O, ace, and a. That's going to be most of the verbs that you'll study in the Greek language. It will be most of the verbs right there. Now in the plural, you have, it changes again. You have men, so you're going to have blepomen or luomen, and the next one is ete. That's second person plural, ete, luete, and then usi. Usi. That's third person plural. So you have, these are the endings right here. O, ace, a, men, ete, usi. That's the present active indicative. And you can take any of those verbs that are in the vocabulary there and you can conjugate them with those endings right there. The part, let me go over a couple of things again. The part of the verb that remains constant throughout all the conjugation and has the various endings added to it is called the stem. That's always going to be the same. The present stem of a verb can be obtained by removing the final ending. The conjugation of the present active indicative of any verb in this vocabulary can be obtained by substituting the present stem of the verb, and then you'll be able to just conjugate those verbs. Just change the stem. Now the endings, it's important again to realize that the ending tells you a whole lot about that verb. The ending will tell you a lot about who is doing the talking, how many are. It helps us know how the person is looking at the kind of action and how the person is looking at the fulfillment of it. That's what you learn by the endings. So what I would like to encourage you to do tonight is to take this list home and work on the vocabulary, learn those words, and be able to conjugate those verbs. And when you pick up John chapter 1 and you start reading, you'll go a long way in knowing some of those verbs just by knowing the endings. Let me tell you why verbs are important in the Greek Bible. Turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 3. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. This is really all that we're going to try to do tonight. And again, if you have questions after class is over, if you want to talk more, if you want to go a little bit deeper, we can do that too. But this is about what we're going to do. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 3. And let's read someone for us, verse 6.
I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth.
Okay. You have three nouns there in that verse, primarily to what we're trying to learn. I, Apollos, and God. And you have three verbs. I did what?
What is this planted?
Planted. And what did Apollos do?
Water.
Paul watered. And what did God do? God gave the growth. Now when you read that in English, you don't get the sense of what is being said. Because it looks like that you have Paul writing about people that he had taught, and you have Paul saying, well, I came in and I planted, and Apollos came in and he watered, and then God gave the increase. But if you know the verbs, and if you can learn the mood and the tense of the verbs, especially here the tense, you'll see something different. When Paul said, I planted, he used what we call the aorist tense. Now, we probably won't get very much into this, but the aorist is spelled A-O-R-I-S-T in the English language. The aorist tense is what we call the simple past. The best way to define it is the simple past. That's something that was done in the past. Paul said, I planted. There was a time that I planted. And he used the ending is the aorist. And then you come to Apollos watered. That's something Apollos did in the past. He watered in the past. That's the aorist tense. But when he comes to God gave thee growth, he doesn't use the same tense. He changes the tense. What we mean by that is if you were looking at the ending, it would be the same ending on planted and watered. But he changed the tense when he came to God gave the growth. He used what we call the imperfect tense. And the imperfect tense is not simple past, but it was something that was done in the past and was continuously done. It continued to be done in the past. And so look at what he's saying. I planted and Apollos watered, but literally it doesn't say God gave the growth. Literally it says God was giving the growth. And literally, to be even more pointed, what it says is that God was giving the growth all along. And if you want to get real strict with it, he was saying, I planted and God was giving the growth. Apollos watered and God was giving the growth. And during the time that I was planting, God was giving the growth. During the time that Apollos was watering, God was giving the growth. God kept on giving the growth. This is something I might have done in the past. This is something Apollos might have done in the past. But God was giving the growth all along. At the same time that I was planting and Apollos was watering.